Good morning, traders. I am Emily Vani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Thursday, March 20th. Rates steady to manage uncertainty means markets steadier, higher, and more certain, at least yesterday. Following the latest from the Fed during regular trading yesterday, all three major indices closed in the green. The Dow popped 383 points, or nearly 1%. The S&P 500 jumped 60 points, or more than 1%. The Nasdaq gained 246 points, or 1.41%. Bill, let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Hi, yes, good morning, Emily. S&Ps are down. We're down half of 1% this morning. We were flat, and then like at around 6 a.m., it just dropped. I mean, they were down like 0.8%. Now we're down. We've rallied back, and we're only down half of 1%. The big news from yesterday is the Fed left the rates unchanged. They continue to project 2 rate cuts this year, but they warned of an uptick in inflation and unemployment for later this year. Got to keep that in mind. So later today, Donald Trump is expected to sign an executive order aimed at closing the Department of Education. Keep an eye on those education stocks. Chevron, they lobbied the president yesterday for a 2-month extension in order to shut down its operations in Venezuela. Looks like they're going to be successful there. And then what caused this drop in the S&Ps this morning? Listen, Western European nations are holding discussions to provide boots on the ground to Ukraine with essentially a peacekeeping force. This could be contentious, especially with Russia. Very contentious decision. They were doing this without the U.S., so they'd be going in there with just Western European nations with no support from the U.S., and that could be a bit of an issue. But that's what caused these markets to weaken this morning. Jobless claims due up before the opening bell. Expectations is for a reading of 225K. After the opening bell, we get it. Existing home sales are due out, expecting a reading of 3.95 million. Earnings going to be in focus today. We got earnings coming up from Nike, FedEx, Micron, Linear. They're all scheduled to report after the bell today. Taking a look over in Europe right now, we're looking at the DAX. The DAX is down 349 points. That's 1.5%. We're looking at the FTSE down 25 points. That's 0.3%. The CAC is down 86 points, or 1.06%. We're looking last night in Asia. The Nikkei was closed. It's a holiday there. But Hong Kong fell 551 points. It's 2.23%. Shanghai fell 0.51, a half of 1%. The big issue here is, on China's Fitch ratings. One of the rating services, they're out there warning that the U.S. tariffs, including the projected 35% effective rate on Chinese goods, could shave off a point off of China's GDP. And they're expecting global growth to slow to 2.3% in 2025 from 2.9% last year. And then there's the Chinese stimulus program. I mean, we're still waiting on some clarity in the timing and the scale of what they're talking about with respect to their stimulus that they announced earlier in the week. So, yeah, those are like some signals of cautionary issues in front of the Asian markets. Now we're taking a look at oil. And oil, it is trading higher. You got WTI is at $67.39 a barrel. You got Brent at $71.02 a barrel. Okay, so they're up about a little over 0.3%. Now, yesterday we had the EIA data. EIA data came out with a build as well. It came out with a build that was bigger than expectations. That's not positive. But the European peacekeeping force, that's kind of causing some concerns on the oil market, because it doesn't seem like Russia's going to be able to add any supply to the market anytime soon, and that lowers the global supply. So yeah, that's a little bit of concerning, and that's why I think we're seeing oil prices tick higher this morning. But that's what I have for you in terms of a morning market update report today, Emily.
And Bill, as we both mentioned, we're sort of coming off the latest from the Fed yesterday as markets really try to get their bearing around the news cycle. Following that news, as you mentioned, there's sort of more geopolitical news taking hold this morning. Another area that you mentioned that's in focus today is earnings action. So we will kick it off with earnings action. Bill, what is going on there?
Well, I mean, we listen. We got to start. We got to start off with one of the good ones that came out, which is Five Below, ticker FIVE. I mean, they beat by 11 cents. They met on revenue expectations, and you look at the stock; it's trading over 8% higher this morning. So that's very positive. And then you get Darden's Restaurants, DRI, David Richard India. They beat by a penny. It was done on lower revenue. Stock's down about 2% this morning. And Accenture ticker, Accenture also reported this morning. That's ticker ACN, Apple Charlie Nancy. Now, again, they did deliver a beat, which is positive. They beat by a penny. They did do it on higher revenue, but that stock's getting hit. It's down 4.92% this morning in the pre-market. Now we're talking about upcoming earnings report because we got a number of them coming out after the close, like Lanier, ticker LEN, Larry Edward Nancy. Their EPS is $1.76. The expected move here is 6.61%. You got FedEx, FDX, Frank David X-Ray. Their EPS is $4.68. Expected move is 8.80%. Micron Technologies, MU, Michael Uncle, EPS is $1.43. Expected move is 9.99%. And then Nike, ticker NKE. EPS is 28 cents. Expected move is 8.34%. I mean, I'm seeing elevated put activity on Nike, FedEx, Lanier. Micron's, semi-positive. Micron's the best of the bunch. I kind of think that has the ability to have some positive momentum today. But, FedEx, remember, they're losing Amazon as a client. That's kind of an issue. Nike, their sales without China is really hurting. Home building, issues are out there with the elevated interest rates. So yeah. I mean, I'm not really loving any of the earnings that are due out after the bell today, Emily.
You'll be watching those earnings, even if you don't love them, using your NewsWare, following those reports, see what those stocks are doing based off those reports. You're also keeping track of economic events as you do every morning. And now with the latest from the Fed behind us, it still is important to track these economic events day in and day out so we can prepare for what would be upcoming. As you mentioned, sifting through comments from Fed official Jerome Powell was important yesterday, kind of giving indications on what may happen through the rest of the calendar year. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of economic events today?
Okay. At 8:30 a.m., we get jobless claims. Also at 8:30, we get the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index. And at 10 a.m., we get the existing home sales. Yesterday's Fed decision, hey, it's what the market was expecting. They're reiterating their projections of reducing interest rates by 50 basis points, 25 basis point cuts sometime this year. They kept that in there. That Fed statement, they removed language in the Fed statement, describing the risks to achieve low and stable inflation with strong employment as roughly imbalanced. Okay, the key takeaway is that the Fed is projecting slightly higher inflation and higher unemployment by the end of the year as compared to their projections that they gave out in December. That's what we're seeing. Powell was, quick to kind of say that, you can't really make a assertion as to what the tariff policies are going to have on the economy because we don't know what the tariff policies are. I mean, they change every day. It's very unclear. There's a lot of nervousness around it, and he's not going to stick his neck out there to kind of make an assumption on facts that he doesn't know yet. So he held his tongue yesterday, which is really the right thing to do. But that's what I have for you in terms of economic update, Emily.
And Bill, again, you follow all of that using your NewsWare. You're able to gather those economic reports, a number of key ones today, and you were able to sift through commentary from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell yesterday using your NewsWare, and you're able to track all different types of news coming out of different sectors and segments. You have your earnings reports, you have your economic events, but you also follow every morning things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news. You also group your stocks together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
Okay, first off, I got 25 stocks lower on the Dow. I got, 4 higher, 1 unchanged, and Nvidia's just going back and forth, higher and lower. They can't make its mind up. And then you look at your FANG stocks, and they're all trading lower by, like 0.4% this morning on average. If you're looking at some of the news behind it, like Amazon is eyeing the sales of used cars, of trying to create a section in their website to start selling used cars. That'll keep the other, Carvanas on edge. Google, Meta, the Apple, the EU regulators. These guys are moving forward with the enforcement of their digital services antitrust regulations, even amid the rising tensions with the U.S. I mean, they're going to have to fold on that in order to kind of, get, work with the U.S. on Trump's tariffs policies. Tesla's doing a recall on some of their cyber trucks. It's not significant, but it is a big number. In terms of Dow Jones 30 stocks, Chevron, CVX, Chevron CEO, he was at the White House yesterday with the other oil executives, and he was lobbying for more time to wind down those Venezuelan operations. And it looks like it's going to happen because Trump is said to be considering it. NVIDIA CEO said yesterday that NVIDIA has not been asked to buy a stake in Intel, which was essentially, reported, last week. So we got to keep an eye on that. In terms of merger news, that crypto currency exchange, Kraken, they agreed to buy a futures trading platform for $1.5 billion as it attempts to expand its user base. They're not paying for the software. They're paying for the users that are trading over it. They probably overpaid. For it. Then we're talking some guidance news. FIVE, Frank India Victor Edward, 5 below. They see Q1 adjusted EPS coming in 50 cents to 61 cents. Street estimate was at 50 cents. I mean, they understand that they're going to be, paying more, especially because they source so many of the goods from China. But they're said, well, we'll have to, push some of it onto our consumers, but everything will still stay below $5. So 5 below, as I said, moving higher. It's up 8.86% this morning. Darden's Restaurants, DRI, David Richard India. They 2025 EPS view, they narrowed it a little bit. It's now $9.45 to $9.52. Street estimate's $9.48. So it's still in the middle there. It's okay. Land's End, LE, Larry Edward. Remember, there is a push to sell this company. Land's End sees 2025 EPS coming in 25 cents to 64 cents. Street estimate is 45 cents. It's a very wide range, probably closer to the low end. But Eddie Lambert is pushing for a sale of Land's End. And then you got, ACN, Accenture. They narrowed their full year 2025 EPS view to $12.55 to $12.79. Street estimate is $12.72. It's okay. In terms of shareholders events going on, NVIDIA's that GTC AI conference continues today. In Disney, ticker DIS, David India Sam. Hey, they're having their annual shareholders meeting today. You got to keep an eye on for that. DIS, David India Sam. That's what I have for you in terms of news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, what do you have for us today?
Going with Freeport McMoran, FCX, Frank Charlie X-Ray. Listen, metals should remain a hot topic, should remain a hot sector today. And I like Freeport McMoran, and they're one way to kind of trade copper. You look at yesterday's call volume. I mean, 165,000 calls traded against 17,000 puts. And that's enormous. And then you look at the call open interest, 731K versus 439K, still very positive. And the brokers do have buy ratings on the stock. In fact, JP Morgan just upgraded them this morning. The key is really getting in at the right price. I mean, I'm like 40.75 to 40 85 kind of range. If I can get in there, I think the stock should start to push higher in the afternoon. So that's my pick of the day. Freeport McMoran, ticker FCX, Frank Charlie X-Ray is my stock of the day today, Emily.
FCX it is today, Bill, looking for that entry point. And yesterday's pick of the day, you made a call on an entry point to see if you could get in with some weakness. We will do a check-in on that pick of the day before we sign off, so stick with us through that. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, let's see what we got going on here this morning. Trump memo says foreign service hirings must be based solely on merit. Tesla plans to soon introduce long-awaited battery innovation in Cybertrucks. Trump's turned deportation cases into constitutional showdown. Bank of England follows the Fed with the pause and rate movement. So yeah, they're not doing anything. They're keeping their rates the same. That's what was expected. Shopify, ticker SHOP, they're going to be transferring their listing to NASDAQ from NYSE. HIMS, HIMS, telehealth firms are using a loophole to continue the production of their versions of the weight loss drugs, GLP-1 ingredient. Interesting. PODD, Paul, Oscar, David, trading higher. Insulet's Radiant trial demonstrates meaningful glycemic improvements. Lilly beats Novo Nordisk to launch weight loss drug in India at $50 for a 5 milligram vial. Interesting. U.S. companies race to secure import-export exemptions after Trump pause. VP activist firms, they plan to call a vote against the chairman of the company at its April 17th meeting. Okay, President Donald Trump's administration is considering a plan to extend Chevron's license to pump oil in Venezuela. There it is. Boom. That's what I was saying earlier. Doesn't mean it's happening. It just says he's considering. NVIDIA plans to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S.-made chips and electronics over the next 4 years. That's all I'm saying this morning.
Okay, Bill, before we dive into trading on this Thursday, let's do a quick check-in on yesterday's pick of the day, which was Disney. You just gave us that note about their shareholders meeting today. Again, there could be some positive news coming out of that, so worth continuing to watch this stock. I also caught a news story about Walt Disney, which is the biggest player in Orlando when it comes to theme parks, is really seeing a significant amount of competition from NBC Universal, and they're opening up Epic Universe on May 22nd. So sort of the continuing tensions there between those two big companies. So that's worth watching as well. You were watching Disney yesterday, looking for an entry point around the $99 mark. How did your call work out, Bill?
Listen, look at the numbers. Stock opened up at $99.65, and it fell down below $99.50, and then it ran to $100.96, almost 101. I mean, it closed at 129, but that run up to 196, was stellar. There's your 1%. Take it and walk away. Disney winner yesterday. Very happy, Emily. Very happy.
Taking that win when you see it, and we will check in with you tomorrow about today's Freeport McMoran pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow to end your trading week with NewsWare's Trade Talk, when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.